Hello my friends, welcome to the channel. And thank you for supporting me through the years on this journey. Okay, now let's talk about this week's word. This week's word is purpose. What does it mean? Well, Webster defines it as follows: the reason for which something exists or is done, for something that gives someone a sense of meaning and direction in life. I have an entire newsletter dedicated to this topic, and I think we've talked about it on the podcast. But today, I want to talk about something related, which is the purpose-passion gap. There are so many people who jump from one thing to the next without ever sticking around long enough to master the skill or achieve the success they want. They start a business, but within a few months they're bankrupt and looking for the next best thing. They get halfway through a workout routine and then just stop working out again. They fall in love and then get bored after a year and move on to the next person. It's almost like there's an expiration date on their commitment. They start with a burst of energy and excitement, but quickly lose interest once the honeymoon period ends. And they don't even reach the real challenge because they just ran out of fuel. But why? Why do people do that? And how can we avoid it? Well, I believe it all boils down to one psychological phenomenon that I call the purpose-passion gap. Let me explain. When we first decide to pursue something, whether it's a new relationship, a career change, or a fitness goal, we feel this rush of excitement and motivation. It feels like a rocket launch, all fire and noise and upward momentum. We can't wait to tell our friends, we post about it online, and we dive in head first. But then things settle down. The fire isn't roaring anymore. It's barely a flicker. The work that felt exciting now feels like a chore. The rocket hasn't just slowed down. It's tumbling back to Earth. And if you're not careful, you might just crash land. Think about it. If you wanted to get fit and muscular, you wouldn't expect to be carrying your body weight in a bench press on your first try. If you wanted to become a writer, you wouldn't expect to publish a bestseller on your first draft. If you wanted to be financially independent, you wouldn't expect to become a millionaire without any savings. But for some reason, when it comes to our goals and dreams, we often hold ourselves to unrealistic expectations. We expect to find success and fulfillment immediately, and we're surprised when it doesn't happen. In his book, Mindset, Carol Dweck calls this a task-based mindset. People with a task-based mindset set out to prove themselves by showing what they can accomplish by a certain deadline. Often this is because their self-worth is tied to their ability to perform. In other words, they think, if I don't achieve X, then I am a failure. But here's the problem. When you approach your goals with the wrong mindset, you set yourself up for disappointment. Instead of celebrating every small victory along the way, you're constantly looking at the finish line. And when you don't reach it as fast as you expected, you feel like you failed. For example, let's say you're trying to learn Spanish. With a task-based mindset, you might think, I should be able to speak fluently in 3 months. But here's the reality. Learning a language takes time. There are many factors at play, such as the complexity of the language, your learning style, and how much time you have to study. And sometimes there are just random things that can cause delays, like getting sick or moving to another country where you don't have to use Spanish. So instead of thinking in terms of deadlines, you should focus on the process. Setbacks will inevitably occur. It's just part of the journey. The key is to enjoy the process rather than obsessing over the end result. Once you focus on the experience of learning rather than the grade you get at the end, you'll start to see progress. This is what it means to have a learning mindset, which is something that many successful people share. They have a growth mindset, which means that they view challenges as opportunities to grow rather than threats to their ego. They understand that setbacks are inevitable on the path to success, but they don't let them hold them back. They dust themselves off and keep moving forward. And I know that this might sound easier said than done, but I promise you that it's possible. I used to have a very task-based mindset myself, but over the years I've learned to embrace the journey and trust the process. And I've found that it's made all the difference. So how can you avoid the purpose-passion gap? How can you make sure that you stay committed to your goals even when things get tough? Well, I think it all starts with understanding your motivations for doing what you do. Many of us start projects based on borrowed motivation. We see someone else succeed with a dropshipping store, so we start one. We see a content creator go viral, so we copy their style. We chase the outcome, the money, the status, the validation without ever questioning the source of our own drive. But here's the truth: shallow motivation cannot survive deep challenges. Superficial reasons for starting won't be enough to keep you going when things get tough. You'll abandon it for the next shiny object, and the cycle will repeat. So if you want to avoid the purpose-passion gap, you have to dig deeper. You have to ask yourself, why do you really want this? Why does it matter? And when you can answer those questions with conviction, you'll be unstoppable. But how do you do that? How do you discover your true motivations? Well, I have two suggestions. First, use the 5 whys technique. It's a simple exercise that can help you get to the root of your motivations. All you have to do is ask yourself, why do you want this? And then ask yourself that same question for more times. For example, let's say you want to start a design agency. You might say, I want to start a design agency because I want to make more money. Okay, that's a pretty superficial reason. So ask yourself again, why do you want to make more money? Because I want to quit my job and have more freedom. All right, that's a little bit better. Now ask yourself why again. Because I hate being told what to do and when to do it. That seems like a deeper motivation. Keep asking until you get to the bottom of it. You'll be surprised at what you find. For me, when I ask myself why I want to do something, the answer usually boils down to one of 3 things: creativity, independence, or impact. Those are my non-negotiables. Anything that aligns with those values is something I am likely to stick with even when things get difficult. And I know that sounds simple, but this exercise has been a game changer for me. It's helped me avoid the purpose-passion gap by keeping me focused on what really matters. My second suggestion is to identify your non-negotiable. I call it your non-negotiable because it's the one thing that you cannot compromise on. It has the core value that you need to protect and nurture in order for you to feel fulfilled and satisfied. Think of it as your North Star, something that guides you through the darkness and keeps you from losing your way. For example, let's say you're planning to write a book. Your non-negotiable could be creative expression, which means that you need to write in a way that is true to your voice and reflects your unique perspective on the world. It doesn't matter if you're writing fiction or nonfiction, poetry or prose, as long as you're able to express yourself authentically, you're honoring your non-negotiable. Or let's say you're starting a YouTube channel. Your non-negotiable could be impact. It doesn't matter if you never reach a large audience or become a millionaire. As long as you feel like you're making a difference in the lives of the people who do watch your videos, you're living up to your values. And here's the best part. Once you identify your non-negotiable, you can use it as a litmus test for any decision you make about your project. Is this helping me live up to my non-negotiable? If the answer is yes, then do it. If the answer is no, then don't. Simple, right? It's not always easy to follow this rule. Sometimes you have to make tough choices and sacrifice short-term success for long-term fulfillment. But trust me, it's worth it. When you stay true to your non-negotiable, you'll be able to weather any storm and endure any challenge. We've all heard stories of people who have done seemingly impossible things. They've climbed Mount Everest with no hands, run marathons with no legs, traveled to outer space with no wings. How did they do it? Well, the secret is simple. They had a strong sense of purpose. They knew why they were doing what they were doing, and that gave them the strength and determination to overcome any obstacle. Let me tell you a quick story. This is the story of a boxer named Rubin "Hurricane" Carter. In 1966, Carter was sentenced to 18 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. He was innocent, but he was convicted and sent to jail. Most people would have given up hope at that point, but not Carter. He had a strong sense of purpose. He wanted to prove his innocence, not just for himself, but for his family and for everyone who believed in him. And that gave him the strength to fight for his freedom. Carter trained relentlessly in the prison yard and eventually became the middleweight boxing champion of Canada. He fought for 10 years and won every single match. In 1975, he was released from prison after serving 9 years of his sentence. Carter went on to fight for social justice and became a legendary boxer and activist. He lived a remarkable life because he had a strong sense of purpose. He knew why he was fighting, and that gave him the strength and determination to achieve his goals. What's the moral of this story? It's that you can achieve anything if you have a strong sense of purpose. You need to find your why, the reason why you're doing what you're doing. When you have that, nothing can stop you. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope it inspired you to find your purpose and avoid the purpose-passion gap. If you want to take things further, I highly recommend checking out a book called Start With Why. It's a great read that goes into detail on how to find and use your purpose to achieve your goals. If you're feeling lost or stuck, this book is for you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing week, and I hope to see you back here next time.